And we're recording to the cloud. This is the SIG network meeting for January 20th, 2022. We're going to start off with some issue triage. Tim, Bridget, I forget which of you decided was going to go for it, but you should be free to start.
Go ahead, Tim.
I got it. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right. So I made a pass through. There's been a lot of people who are updating their issues this week, so thank you. I pinged a couple. These are the ones that are left or that I didn't get to before the meeting. So Go routine leaks in several tests. I've already seen at least one PR for this. There may have been more. What would be cool is if we got volunteers to just go look at them. It seems like there's some cookie cutter that you can follow to at least understand where the Go routine leaks are. This is not super urgent, but you know, if everybody who's interested signs up for one test, I think there's 6 here that are ours. Range allocator, repair controller, just 3 that are ours. Cool. And endpoints controller. So anybody want to volunteer to go take a look at these Go routine leaks in tests, not prod? Anybody?
What does leak mean?
It means the test terminated and the Go routine was still alive.
If you add the help wanted, a lot of people fix them, you know, as first issue.
Yeah, it's hard for me to tell whether all of these are closed or not. I know that I looked at least one pull request around this, so I don't even remember which one it was. So hey, maybe all of them are done and we can take ourselves off this list, but I just need somebody to take a look at them and confirm.
I can take a look.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, whatever.
No,
If Antonio wants to.
No, you.
Well, I'll point you guys at the issue. It's 107372. Load it up, pick one of the 3 that look like ours, and just go poke at it. If you can, look at the log, look at history, and maybe it was changed recently, and then we can just scratch it off here. Or if not, maybe we can apply the cookie cutter to it. So I'll leave this open. In fact, I will accept it for triage.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, HTTP 3. Antonio, I think this is at you. Should we accept this? Do you want to file an issue, like a comprehensive HTTP 3 issue? Do you want to use this one?
Okay, the thing is, this is using UDP, so all the UDP tests should cover that. But I wanted to go further and try to install an actual HTTP 3 server. The problem is that to add that in the unhost, it brings a lot of dependencies. But in parallel, I want to add support to the API server to HTTP 3. And I have a cap. I don't know. I have to ping Daniel Smith. So I hope to close the 3 things at the same time. But most probably I will not be able to close it. The thing is, it has to work, but I want to add a specific test that says we are testing HTTP 3.
Oh yeah, for sure. Do you want to keep this issue? Do you want me to close this issue because you've already got it under control?
No, keep it open because I use them as reminders.
Okay, I'm gonna just accept it for triage then. It's yours. This one was assigned to Bowie last session. Bowie, are you here? Yeah, I see Bowie's name there. I see Rob trying not to get caught in this too.
Yes, I'm here.
Can one of you take a look, and maybe I think the resolution here is just, this is how you would describe it with gateway.
Yep.
And then we can say not fixing for service.
Yeah, I will comment.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button.
This one I think was assigned to Dan. There we go. I'm not sure that we're going to do anything here, but I think 2 weeks ago we decided to assign it to Dan. Maybe Dan wasn't here and that's why.
Nope, I was, and I've looked at it a few times and been like, yeah, I don't know. like I kind of feel like if kubelet is going to have a cleanup option, then it's a kubelet bug, and we should let them decide whether they want to do it. But then also, well, it is a networking related thing, so maybe it is our bug, and I can't make up my mind.
Okay, you want to leave it open for another cycle?
Sure.
I don't know if they are deleting the logic that create the. I don't know. Forget the Docker sim theme, but it's not great.
Yeah, I mean, now with Docker shim out, actually, that I think that all that code is removed. That's a good point, Antonio. I think all of the IP tables code has been removed from kubelet anyway, or most of it.
I know that there is a PR related, but I don't remember.
The host port code would go away, but the setup code is in like the top level of the kubelet.
Oh, is that like the mark mask table or chain and stuff?
Yeah, it creates those chains. Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it for you. But if we can't come up with some resolution, then I think it dies by pocket veto.
Okay.
UDP something something. Antonio was all over it, wasn't he? No.
Yeah, but this is a complex setup they have in GKE, and I mean that's for these bugs you need to be able to reproduce and start to check the IP table rules, dump the packets, and all these things. Just from reading logs.
Yeah, so I didn't read this whole issue, but we haven't touched it since December. Should we assign it to someone to try to reproduce, or?
It was
Yeah, let
assigned
me see if we can get someone to repro it.
Was this specifically GKE? Oh yeah, it is.
Don't we have
Okay.
don't we have a test for this that they can just run? Don't we
Yeah,
have one
I
of those
think this
that
was
takes a
some
UDP and confirms the contract rules are deleted? Yeah, go on.
specific thing.
Yeah, we do have a test. The problem is that this is a much more complex scenario because the source is coming from a load balancer. So I don't know. There is a lot of chaining of services and things there. And you need to spend time on
Okay.
this.
All right.
So
Well, it's
basically
assigned.
you're getting the same five or six tuple again, right? For a new flow.
Yeah, I think this is complex because it's you might not be able to tell what to do.
The diagram is great. So the person this person opened a bug previously and it's really good, describing and very helpful.
I can take a look. So just to analyze what's there. I think you've done it already, but just have a second eye on it. This is first time in 100 years I'm here. And we have exactly the same things in Capin.
Yeah.
Okay.
106 274.
274. Thank you.
Barry, you finally showed up.
No, it's like and any weird behaviors I see, I want to check them so then can make sure that we fix the problem in Caping as well.
Yeah. Okay, that was as far as I got with my prep work. So we've got two more that are sort of long-standing that we haven't looked at in a while. Pod loses network connection. This is on outgoing traffic during graceful shutdown. This is as far as I got with pre-reading. Anyone remembers?
I vaguely remember, and I'm assigned to this one, and it slipped my radar. I think there's a recent post that I need to digest. It doesn't include some of the diags that we asked for.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if it has.
Oh, and you are assigned to it.
Something that's useful. Yeah.
It looks like the last thing you might have said was that this might be a Calico issue, but
We confirmed that it's not that, I think.
okay.
Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll let you have a look. And then this one I didn't look at all today. Node lifecycle controller.
That'd be good if you did your piano. Yeah.
Is it assigned? No, it's a feature request. Oh, it's assigned to Cal. Cal, do you know what this one is?
No, sorry, been a while. I'll take a look.
It looks like SIG node might have moved it to one of their boards.
I think that we talked about this. This is the one with network partitions. But you did mention it that there is a dirty partition or something like that.
Okay.
But it was okay. Partition.
Okay. Cal, why don't you take a look at it? If it's not you, you can unassign. Or stick it back on Sergey or Alana. Yeah, it's on the SIG node bugs. Cool. That's it.
Cool. Tim, you're actually up next as well with cat review.
Oh, all right. Shoot. Let me share
There's
that one.
one more issue that I have commented just.
Oh, which one, Lars?
Second. Sorry, I'll quickly paste it in the chat.
17662. Oh yeah, I did look at this one, but it looked like you were on it, so I
Yeah,
discussed it.
I can take it if you.
Oh yeah, it's not assigned to you.
Yep.
All right, I pre looked at that one, and oh, Lars is all over it, so I just didn't show it. Okay. So the last time we talked, we actually made it through most of the KEPs, right? Do we still need to do a full KEP review? I forget what we had decided we were going to do.
I thought we had gotten through most, but perhaps not all. I think we were cut a little bit short. I'm also struggling to remember.
Sorry, are you guys hearing all the piano? Let me go close the door.
It was good piano though.
Sorry, it's piano o'clock, so and it doesn't really help closing the door.
I noticed one of my KEPs is missing from the board and I couldn't figure out how to add it. I just pasted the URL in chat. So maybe that goes into the triage pile, whatever.
So the way to add it is to go to the projects and add it to SIG network KEPs.
Okay, so only you can do that then because
oh really?
Mere mortals don't have those powers.
Isn't there a bot command for that? I forget all the bot commands. I still rely on the ClickOps, but maybe
I don't know if the bots do projects.
Maybe they should. Okay, well, I just did it, and that will put it in the unsorted category. So let me go ahead and project again, then. Let me move you to a different workspace and share a window tab. Which, oh boy, there's too many tabs. Windows, SIG network KEPs. Share. You see this one? Yes? Okay. So
looks good.
Where did I just put you, Dan? Oh, I have to reload maybe. Yeah, there, prefer. I have not looked at this KEP yet, but I think, I don't know, should we move it straight to pre-alpha? Are we committed to it, or is it still like a debatable one, Dan?
I mean, nobody has objected to it. You actually did look at it before in October.
Oh, okay.
So.
Come on. Oh, you know what? I'm in trouble. Chrome has broken drag and drop in this release. Yay for being on the front edge. All right, I'll move it as soon as I get the Chrome update. But
I can move it.
Or you can move it?
Yeah.
Stick it in pre-alpha.
Well, you did something. I cannot see it now.
Did it go?
So,
Oh.
yeah, okay. Apparently, I can't add it to the project, but on the issue page now, there's a pop-up menu on the project, and I can move it to a different column from there.
Okay.
Okay, great. And you're shooting for 24?
Yes.
Okay, so noted. So let's look real quickly, make sure that we're all good. So these are all GA. We don't need to pay attention to those. Actually, things that were GA in 22 can have their gate removed in 24, right? So I know, Rob, we talked about this last week or something. You signed up for 2.
Yeah, the endpoint slice and ingress class are both on the docket for this time to have the gate removed.
Okay. So 1, 2. Sorry, say again, which ones?
Endpoint slice and namespace scope ingress. Those two are both, we need to remove the gate on both of those.
Okay, I'm gonna mark this as 22 just so it's easy to keep track of. Okay, and then the rest, not yet. Okay. You get some funky echo going on, Rob. I don't know if it's everybody else or just me.
No, it sounds like not just you. Any better now, or still reverb?
No.
It's really funky.
It sounds like there's
Okay.
two of you 100 milliseconds apart.
It would be great for death metal.
Scream. No, don't. All right, so running back through beta, stuff that's beta that wants to go GA. Which ones do we want to do? This one was marked, let's start at the top, terminating endpoints. This is probably, Rob, we talked about this one too, right?
Yeah, that I don't think that's going to change. I think that's just going to stay as beta. I mean, it could go to GA, but I don't know that it has to. What we're really waiting for is the functionality that depends on.
Sure, but if we can get it out of the column, I'd love to. Is there any reason not to? Like, are we missing some information that might materially change the way it works? Oh, we talked about scalability, right?
Yeah,
That
so
was
the
one of the
scalability, and the other issue here is, again, I don't know if I'm still reverb like crazy.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, all right, cool. So, and the other issue is that the actual features that, like this, as I remember, this specific KEP is API only, and other KEPs are actually using this field. So we may want those other KEPs to have a little bit more time to get used. I don't know.
I'm okay with that as a policy. Objections?
Because the card directly to the left of it, graceful termination for local external traffic policy, is still alpha. So yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm fine with that. Maybe we'll move them from beta to GA together.
Do you know why there's a stage alpha tag?
What do you mean?
Yeah, that sometimes those just don't get updated. I think it's a subset of people that can change the stage.
Yeah, we've tried a million things with labels for metadata, and they all suck because they all get forgotten.
I was confused.
Okay, so we're going to leave traffic tracking terminating endpoints. In fact, why don't we just say that? Toss on here. Goodness.
The thing is that we have 3 or 4 KEPs that are all of them interrelated, and then we have this problem when they conflate, like internal traffic, external traffic, topology aware, terminating endpoints.
Yes, we have like 4 that are all interrelated. I just saw something from Andrew today, but I didn't read it yet, about maybe getting them all together or bringing internal traffic, internal graceful termination at the same time.
the thing is otherwise we are going to have the problem that I think that is language that is working on that. I mean, it's impossible to if they don't, if the caps don't enter at the same time, we are going to end refactoring kubeproxy 4 times, or one time per cap.
Well, I mean, that's happening anyway. The question is, are we going to like release it 4 times and deal with the fallout of bugs on it 4 times?
That's the thing. I mean, you check the language CPR. I tried to check it, and I mean, I need 6 hours just to understand the flow.
Yeah, I need to go back through that after the caps lock in.
And that's my question: is do we have the capacity to absorb all these changes? Because these are very subtle. So tracking terminated endpoints with internal traffic with. I mean, kubeproxy is not something flexible right now.
So maybe we should leave them until we can move them all together, like just consider them all co-linked.
But that's why I'm worried, because I feel that some of them are going to depend in others. So
you can't.
We want first wing.
Like we can't merge any of like. I mean, we don't want to have to build 20 commits all in one PR to change all the features at once, right? Like, if we're going to have manageably sized PRs, then we have to merge the features one by one.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to say this. What I'm trying to say is, do we know how do we want the traffic to behave once the 4 features are in? Because every feature are going to come with their own assumptions. And that's the problem that we have now, you know? And that's what I am afraid. Because service internal traffic policy is going to assume something, but then tracking terminating endpoints is going to realize, we can do this because this is doing the other thing. And that's what I'm afraid. So what I'm saying is, are we able to describe right now how the traffic is going to work with these 4 features at the same time?
I believe so, yes.
If we can, there is no problem then.
Well, describing it and actually having the code for it and the tests that prove that it works are 2 different things.
Well, I'm happy just with describing.
Okay. So I guess I'm saying we should not GA these things individually. Like, let's consider them to be effectively arm in arm caps that we're going to move forward together. So the focus then is moving them from alpha to beta so they all catch up. Is that fair?
Yeah. So there is no graceful termination for internal traffic policy cap, though, is there?
So the email I got from Andrew, I don't know if it was yesterday or this morning, was maybe we can do that in the external. He was proposing originally, like, let's add a new cap for that. And then the summary of the email was maybe we should do them at the same time. It's maybe not that hard.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard to do them together.
And there was actually another issue that was triaged this afternoon that was, somebody wanted that too. Okay, so I'm going to move on for the sake of time. We'll leave these in beta. Network policy port range. We're looking to make a call on whether we move this one or not, right? Is Ricardo here? I think you're blocked on me.
Here, but I think we all know what he would.
Yeah, no, I'm just confirming that I'm pretty sure it's just blocked on me saying, yeah, let's do it, or no, let's don't, right?
Yeah, we just need somebody to say, let's move it or not. I think everybody, I'm certainly, I assume folks are in favor. Is the last thing that's breaking it that Cilium didn't implement it yet or something?
Well, that's the concrete part of it, but the more abstract part of it is, like, should we have proceeded when we know that one of the major implementations is sort of reluctant to implement it and not even has a clear path to sane implementation?
So
Like, as a community, should we be forcing this onto implementations? Should we say, well, it's optional and there isn't a really good way to know whether it works or not because we haven't solved that problem? Or should we go the other direction and say, well, the implementations hold the API hostage? Not hostage is the wrong word. They get to delay us because they haven't implemented. Sorry, Perry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, with multi-ports, I mean, that's as first an example is really looking at the text. Different pods can implement different subset of the ports, right? With a port range, I assume that a pod must implement the full range, right? And just can do subsets of it. I would say that to me, that's never been clear when I look at the proposal. I mean, there is one test, I mean, Antonio knows in the end-to-end, right? When you have 2 ports in the service and then 2 pods, one implementing each port, right? And you can see in the classical, we have port statements, right, in the multi-port. And that's okay for a pod to implement a subset of them. But with the port range, that's my question. Is it okay to have a pod that just do a subset of the port range, or does it have to do the full port range?
This isn't the service port range thing. This is the network policy port range.
Sorry. Fuck. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Service port ranges are also.
Yeah, of course. I'm just.
Yeah, this one semantically seems easier. This is just an allow rule.
It's
I think we should go ahead and move the feature forward, and people who want to use Cilium and cannot use this feature just disable the gate until Cilium figures out how to implement it.
Well, once we move it to GA, the gate gets locked. Right. So they'll have to, we can choose to not lock it, but I don't know how often. I know it's been done at least once. I don't know how many more times it's been done.
I thought from our discussion last time, there was pretty dubious motivation for this in the first place. So like my general inclination there is like, why push it forward if there's not a lot of motivation for it and somebody can't implement it, and we're just going to have to maintain that indefinitely.
So Bridget said in the chat exactly what I was thinking. If we leave it in beta for too long, then it becomes permanent. Now, it's not such a huge deal because it's just a field, right? But like we know, I'm guessing everybody has felt this pain of like customers who are using Ingress beta and don't want to move to Ingress GA because it's been beta for 2.5 years and it already works. And why are you changing it on me, damn it? And doesn't exactly map to this problem, but I also feel the desire to not leave things in beta for forever. So
there's no way out of beta, right? There's no like.
We can kill it. We could decide we're not doing this, right? We have a notification period, but we'd have to decide we're not doing this. So the question is the motivation really dubious, or is it just not the strongest motivation we've ever had, but still useful?
Motivation for what exactly? Sorry.
Port ranges on policy.
One thought I have is that I kind of do believe it's useful. And in fact, the more generic version of this should be that you should be able to specify a list of ranges. So that is frequently how ACLs allow you to have port 1, port 7, and then port 10 through 20, sort of aggregation of ranges as opposed to start and stop only. So I do think it's useful. In fact, a more generic version of it would be properly useful. This is sort of in between where you just have a start range and a stop range. So that's one thing to consider. The second thing is that with regard to Cilium not being able to do it, well, the workaround is always they just create lots of policies with each one individual port and each policy. So they do have a workaround for Cilium.
I mean, that's a pretty, yes, I guess you're technically correct, but it's a pretty poor workaround if somebody enables thousands of ports.
Yeah, but that's exactly the
if you
point,
want to
that
do a range.
if there are in practice often a need for thousands of ports, then users actually want this kind of policy.
Yeah.
So well, you can go backwards, but like the fact is there was a cap and then there was an issue. That cap came from an issue, and the issue was filed long before any of us were even talking about this, and I think that issue had a ton of people saying they wanted this, and that's why the KEP was written.
So
And all the SIG microcontrollers have always had this feature anyways, so clearly people want and use it. This is just standardizing it.
Like Calgo.
I just think that it's a choice for Cilium to say, no, we can't implement this. It's a tech stack choice. It's probably BBF maps or whatever that I keep using BBF, but you can build, Cilium can choose to do this via IP tables and it will work until BBF catches up with the ability to do multi-port and so on. The point I'm trying to make here is there is a Venn diagram, two circles of users who are there. There is a circle of people who are asking for this, that this works for a lot of people and want it. And then there is a Venn diagram where it has Cilium, right? They currently don't meet.
Yep.
I don't believe we should make a decision based on one or the ability or inability of one or more people who build on top of the ecosystem to keep up with the API evolution.
Right.
But I agree.
And don't get me wrong, I love Cilium. Like as a technical stack, I absolutely have a lot of respect for it, but it's just a statement that needs to be made.
I agree that the corollary question then is, should we move as the first example of a feature that is not implemented by all known implementations, should we move this forward, or should we solve the how do we tell users about it problem, which if we decide to do would be, plus 9 months or something to get a new resource that shows status or something like that, right? Like
So Tim,
that's a whole other
firstly,
discussion.
I don't think this is the only feature that's not implemented by all CNIs. Maybe not by the 2 or 3 most popular CNIs, but there are other policy features that not all CNIs support. One particular noteworthy one being the IP address CIDR exception. So there are other such.
Okay. I was about to say, well, they're not conformant, but we don't have conformance, strictly speaking, for network policy. So maybe that's the next windmill to tilt at.
Right. Yeah. And in terms of, I don't see any reason why it should be technically irrational for Cilium to just not be able to do this. This is perfectly doable in pretty much anything. So it really comes back to value for customers. And I do think that customers want to be able to specify multiple ad hoc list of ports, which is more generic than just one range.
So the typical reasons, I mean, when you can do that, is in hardware, we don't have TCAM to do it on, right? But in software, sort of then.
No, that's just like, so you do what you can, you break it up into.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so it's.
Yeah, okay. I feel like it's not really reasonable to block this any longer. So I did tag it for 24. We should move this ahead. We should probably not launch any new network policy, specifically network policy changes, cluster network policy notwithstanding.
In reality, right, you can create a script or something that takes the policy, if you're using Cilium, that takes the policies with the ranges and unfolds this.
In fact, one reason for not taking it forward would be if we do believe that the true requirement, sorry to keep harping on that, but the true requirement is in fact a list of ranges of ports.
You can have a list of ports, like you can specify multiple elements in the ports element of the policy.
Can you specify a list of ranges?
You can specify a list of sections, each of which has a single range, which is semantically equivalent.
Right.
Can you say 1 through 5 and 10 through 20?
Yes.
You can probably do that in more than one way.
It's network policy. You can do everything in more than one way.
I mean, we've went ahead
with one instance of a policy.
We've went ahead with dual stack, even though not all the clouds have dual stack, not all the load balancers have a dual stack, and we went ahead. The difference here is dual stack is something that people can configure for. The policy is something that people cannot configure. They cannot.
when you try to use dual stack and it's not supported, you get an error message. When you try to
Yes.
use a port range and it's not supported, it will just be accepted and
Yeah.
then ignored.
I think it would be on the person who implements the CNI to have some sort of webhook, right? Until this thing becomes like standard that says, oh, you're trying to use a feature that I cannot support based on the version that you're currently running on your cluster.
Yeah, I think the larger question for us as a group is, A, should we have a conformance program for network policy? And
Yes.
B, how should we be exposing these partially supported features? And I did start, I know one of my AIs from last time was to have a conversation with the storage folks. I have some notes from them about what they do. The short answer is they're in the same boat as we are. They've tried a bunch of different things, but they don't have any one answer. They actually have like 3 different answers, and they all kind of stink because they're inconsistent.
But the question to Cilium should really be, if they can, let's say there's 1,000 elements, can they handle a list with 1,000 elements? In that case, why don't they break it apart inside the CNI?
Cilium is not saying it is literally impossible for us to implement.
Yeah,
we have to write code, and we don't see the value in doing it.
My question is really, is it the range, or is it that they're scared that it can't handle really, really large sets? That if someone specify 10,000 port sort of in there, that's what it can't handle?
No.
Then it doesn't matter if it's a range, right? Or if someone writes 10,000 ports.
I think it might help if we could get someone who knows what
exactly,
the issue is with Cilium.
Because if it's just a remapping of it, that should be fairly straightforward and to do. If it's the volume that is scared of, that's a very different thing.
Yeah, let's not argue with them in their absence.
No, absolutely. I agree.
But I have asked Thomas and others from Cilium to think really hard about why this isn't implemented or it isn't implementable. They have reasons, both technical and non-technical. That's not for us to adjudicate. The question is, are we willing to wait for them? And I think the answer is no. I think like the feeling that I'm getting from the room is no, we ought not block our process on one implementation. In the future, I will like to look at other changes and how we can avoid this situation and how we can report the result of this. I think that's the more important result.
Yeah, Tim, as an end user to Kubernetes and networking and so on, it's becoming increasingly difficult to see, okay, if I configured my cluster this way in this platform, what will I get and what won't I get? And that right now is very hard to answer, right?
Yes, I agree.
So we need an effort, and I think nobody like from the implementation side should own this, not because of anything other than there is no value for them to own this, but there is a lot of value for us to say somewhere where people can quickly look up. It can be conformance, it can be, I don't know how we want to call it, but we need for people to say, to see that, oh, we're not saying you shouldn't use this or should use that. We're just saying if you chose to go with these things, this is the limits of what you will get. And
Agreed.
I think we owe this to the people.
So I completely agree. We have some thoughts about it, but ultimately it needs an owner, somebody who has the time and the bandwidth to think about it and drive it. So I know we're eating up the whole agenda or the whole meeting time on this one agenda. So I'm going to stop sharing here and turn it over to see what other topics we have. I'll put it out right now. I like this topic. I think it crosses all of these sort of infrastructural SIGs. We will set a good precedent if we try to tackle this problem, but I need a volunteer who wants to own it over the, let's call it medium term, but I hope it's not like dual stack length of time.
But even before we tackle the bigger problem, if we push this forward, don't we think conformance for network policy needs to be the next thing on the chopping block? Like I know that the big problem still needs to be solved, but I think we need to have a way to let users know, like, okay, Cilium doesn't support this little bit, right?
I think there's two sides of the same coin. One is a like human-oriented mechanism, that's conformance, and the other is a technical mechanism, like an API. How can I programmatically go look at this?
So I have a question, sort of this, something I've been thinking over for a long time. If someone started a project and would come forward at some point that would basically isolate the network policy from the CNI and instead present, call it a logical firewall API that just defined rules based on the pods, if they can talk to each other, yes or no, and over which ports and so on, instead of having to, in all the CNIs, have to crunch the policy rules, where we in reality can build a mechanism that separates that, so it would be easy to add new policies and work with what policy means and how they're interpreted and so on, that each CNI shouldn't have to do that.
So it's funny that we talk about this in terms of CNI, because this isn't really at all what CNI is about.
Exactly.
But it's sort of the larger abstract network plugin. And the problem that I see, if I understand what you're describing, is the mechanisms are not always interchangeable. Right? I can't take a policy implementation and say, well, this is going to work fine on any CNI implementation.
No. What I'm saying is, I think that there's a big hole in Kubernetes, that we have the network policies, and then there is nothing, and then we have a number of implementations that implements. I mean, one thing that implement, if you talk about traditional Falcon, you have the policy enforcement points and you have the policy decision functions, right? And the rule set, really, what can talk to what each other, that should be common. I mean, you can have an algorithm that works over many different policy types. If you see the policies as an arc between the different nodes, and then you can evaluate sort of your policy tree, what can talk to which, I mean, based on the egress and ingress rules, and come up with answers that more look like firewall rules. Pod X can talk to pod Y over these ports.
People don't want to like stop traffic coming into their cluster and then, you know, pause it, go through this, you know, generic rule tree and then allow the traffic through.
No.
Write out rules
in
completely different, incompatible ways.
Here, and we've got three more.
No, the rule tree is not in the data path. That's a control part. And then you today in the end, right, what you have is rules, right, that says addresses, right? And things can be broken down to that. So I mean, you have a rule that says this address or this set of addresses can talk to this other set of addresses over these ports if you use IP sets. But each of the CNIs has to start by interpreting the different policies, understand them, and then start mapping policies to endpoints.
So we've got more topics on the list.
Okay, I'll bring it up when I have some description about it.
I feel like you've got something in your head that I don't quite have my finger on. You want to take it to the mailing list and let's explore it. All right, thanks. I yield the floor.
Yeah, we got 3 more topics and a bit under 15 minutes left, so we'll have to keep them a little snappy. Sanjeev, I think you were next with multi-cluster network policy cap introduction.
Okay, yeah. So this is a very, very early draft. I've had very brief initial discussions with some folks, and this was just to introduce the topic and start inviting review comments. We obviously don't have time to go into it in too much detail today. How much time should I spend on this, and what would you like me to cover? So I'll just sort of give the high-level overview here. So the thought here is that this thing called the Multi-Cluster Services API, which I suppose many of you know, is being defined in the SIG multi-cluster. And so the topic of multi-cluster network policy kind of straddles between SIG network and SIG multi-cluster, and SIG, obviously the SIG. And so I was hoping to, get feedback from both this group and the SIG multi-cluster group. So this proposal is to see whether we can have some extensions to network policies, either through the existing API extensions or new API objects, to implementations of the MCS API. Okay, so the MCS API, as you might know, is a generic multi-cluster services API, which can have particular instantiations. So almost like a CNI interface with CNI plugins implementing that interface. So here there's an MCS API, and then projects like Submariner implement that MCS API interface. And so if you just directly took that today, you can it doesn't quite work with network policy because network policy firstly doesn't have references to multi-cluster services. In fact, network policy doesn't even have reference to services to begin with. So the thoughts here were to put some thoughts together, have a network model, have a lot of open questions. So I've kind of kept it pretty open in the sense that, okay, here are reasons to do it and here are reasons to not do it, so that we look at it objectively. And here is a network model, that has to do with, following the MCS API, whether pod IPs are globally unique across the cluster set or not. What kind of model are we expecting for multi-cluster services? And based on that, a certain set of initial assumptions. And then also, how do you actually attach such policies? So, pictorially, today's network policies are essentially attached to pods. So we try to kind of use that model as much as possible, but with multi-cluster services, although there's also a concept of our MCS gateway, even though the MCS API itself doesn't actually have a first-class object called the gateway, but these are potential policy attachment points with this one being a little bit speculative. So there's a bunch of user stories I've written here, some of which have to do with how multi-cluster network policies will coexist with current network policies. And that also has to do with also taking into effect which kind of services are actually exported and imported, not just what policies are configured. And then for a couple of the stories, I have some sample potential manifests. So here's one example where, let's say I want to implement logic, something like this picture here, right? So I've got a cluster here, I've got two pods, both of them are accessing a remote multi-cluster service, which is across an external network on another cluster. And so here is this MCS foo, but I want pod 1 to not be able to access this remote service, and I want pod 2 to be able to access this remote service. That kind of thing you can't do today because you either just globally import a multi-cluster service into a namespace or you don't. You can't select. Yeah.
Sanjeev, for sake of time, let's let other folks have a chance. The doc has been shared. The big questions that I have here are whether services with a capital S actually has any role in the multi-cluster network policy API, or whether it continues to speak in terms of workload. And how do we do this in a scalable way such that whatever API we describe is implementable in a situation where you've got thousands of clusters and millions of endpoints?
Yes. And for now, the working assumption I've started with is that at least some level of service awareness is almost necessary. You can do a brute force. So okay. Yeah, your points are valid, and we've got some thoughts on that in the draft.
Okay.
So feel free to comment. Yeah.
Should we bring this to the SIG network policy subgroup too?
Yes. Oh, sorry. I assume we will, but.
Yeah, I assume you will, and I assume you'll also need to bring it to SIG multi-cluster.
Yes.
In
So
fact, maybe we should do a joint session. Let's we've got like 7 minutes left, and I hate shortchanging people, which I've done anyway.
So the link is in the agenda. Please provide comments. Thanks.
Thanks. Jay, you were next.
Yeah, I don't really have, can we delete the, I think it's okay. Can we delete the user space proxy now? We got the Windows user space proxy finally working in KPMG, and I don't think anybody else cares about it. By the way, I see you, Andrew. It's good to see you, man. So you
look, if I knew I was shortchanging Jay, I would have let Sanjeev go on.
Yeah, I assume nobody cares. Can we delete it? We don't have a cap on it.
I think the short answer is we have to follow at least the deprecation policies. So we will have to, if we want to deprecate it, like let's deprecate it in 24.
I don't think it was ever supported though, was it?
Sure it was. It was the only model in 1.0.
Windows user space. Okay.
So I mean, there's the Windows side of it, but there's the Unix side of it too. So
well, I'm only talking about the Windows, but we'll do the Linux later. But the Linux one is almost done. The Windows one is working. We got it working.
It was still there and turn onable, right? So
it is the default in Windows, isn't it?
I don't think so.
I think the answer here is call
Is
it
it?
deprecated, put a deprecation in the release notes, log something when you activate this mode. You know, this mode is deprecated.
We
it will go away.
deprecated it in the we deprecated in the okay. All right.
And then we just
yeah.
Sorry, when did you deprecate?
It was, I think, the last release, but I don't know if we followed the formal process. I think we just added a command line hook for it. So we can do a formal deprecation.
Yeah, we need to put it in the change log so that it's public, and then we just sit on it for whatever the rules say, 3 releases.
Okay, I'll figure that out. Right. Whoever's next can go.
Cal was next.
It's me, and I wanted to tell you something, Jay, actually. Been watching a demo internally on our site, DBDK on Windows. And the first thing that jumped at me was, oh, why aren't we using that for kubeproxy and CNIs? So there's public material available and demos and how it integrates and all of that stuff, especially on the new Windows OS. I looked at the diagrams and I talked to the people who own the integration with the deep integration with Windows, and I think it might replace the way proxy runs on Windows.
And
just something.
The API from DBDK is the same on Windows and Unix.
Yeah, as far as I know, yes.
You need 2022 for that, though, right?
Yes. I listen. This is literally the limit of what I know. Right? Like, I just wanted you to know that this is happening. All right. And I asked people who are doing Windows, Kubernetes on Windows and so on to track this. And I'm telling you to track it. And the reason behind that is the performance is very different.
Also, it makes it easy to move it onto SmartNIC.
Yeah. So just something for you to think about.
I'll ask Per. Per's going to show me how DPDK works. And then we can
not today.
All right. Okay. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Cool, that was it. We got 4 minutes left.
How about that? Sanjeev, I'm sorry I cut you off. You could have had 4 more minutes.
Yeah, isn't there a song about 4 minutes?
I don't know.
But Sam, the stuff you said about scalability when you do multi-cluster is very interesting because you cannot share all the addresses in the world with every node in the world, right?
That's right.
The control planes will die.
That's right. The naive implementation, the sort of obvious naive implementation is take all the pods from every cluster, from every namespace, and reflect them into every other cluster in every namespace, and then just let selectors do their thing.
So, yeah. So I'm looking at ways to simplify that, and it is possible.
Yes. So I have someone on the Google side who's been looking at the same question. I'm going to connect the dots here. He's been thinking about how to reduce that set to the sort of bare minimum set and then figure out if that's actually an acceptable approach or if we need something more radically different.
I'm looking at using SRv6 and some metadata which identify not an address, but basically the pod that sent the traffic. So you don't have to know any addresses else than the addresses that are on each node in reality can be used. And sort of what you instead have is that you have a meta label for the pods. I mean,
so I like service account as the stand-in for this.
How did you do with the overlapping subnets? I mean, that's impossible.
Okay, these are exactly some of the topics that we are at least partially covering in the draft. So the thought is to have support for network policy where you cannot assume that pod IPs are globally unique, right? Because, I mean, maybe you can do something special in the special case where they are indeed globally unique, a small number of clusters or whatever. But it's got to work without requiring pod IPs to be globally unique and without just doing the naive implementation that didn't work. It's got to have some kind of service awareness. And it probably should not assume any kind of metadata being carried from cluster to cluster to identify the source at a more granular level than the source cluster. So
just to be clear, these are requirements of the API. The implementations can do those things behind the scenes, but the API can't require it.
But it's sort of, it's much simpler to us, I mean, to say that the DNS name should be unique, right? Than the addresses, for instance, or you can build a tree where the path needs to be unique in that tree.
Yeah,
I'm wary of any dependency on DNS, especially reverse DNS.
No, I'm not saying that it's dependent on DNS. I just saying that you can have a name. If you build a, so locally you can always map an address to something, right? And if that something has a global unique identity, or sort of it's a path, I mean, cluster, and then you have namespace or even
service account,
service name and so on, and that you can even use as a path, or you can hash or do something that sort of becomes unique, and that becomes then call it type or whatever you want to call it for this pod metadata. And then if you have many replicas, of course you fold it up to the deployment or similar, because and then all the addresses locally you map to that name when some of them wants to talk to the other side. So
I'll make my last remark. Like, I've seen over and over again people trying to figure out this source service when they build the service graph out, and it's a sort of a nonsensical statement. I wish that we had leaned more on service account here, because it's got much more the right semantics that we want. It's one-to-one with pods, and it's required except for static pods, which is unfortunate. And you can't change it after birth. So it makes all these sort of source destination tuples that much easier. So when I'm reading this proposal, I'm going to be thinking about, how and where service account could play in.
Okay. Thanks for the tip.
Right, thanks, everyone. We're done.
We're done. See y'all in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Send me your caps.
Bye.
Cheers.